Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you haven't been here before, my name is Debbie and I read a lot of books. And I finished another one. This book was called My Friend, Cousin Emmie and it's by Jane Duncan. This doesn't actually have a blurb on it, so I'm going to be reading the blurb off my computer off Goodreads. The front of this book has a hospital library stamp on it, so apologies to the St John and Red Cross Hospital Library where this was stolen from. Admittedly a long time ago, because it smells old. This book is by Jane Duncan. She's got like a series of My Friend books, including My Friend the Miss Boyd, My Friend Muriel, Monica, Annie, Sandy, Martha's Aunt, Flora, Madame Zora and Rose. This was published in 1964 and it's mainly set in the 50s, and it's about a woman called Janet and her husband Alexander, who she has nicknamed twice because he has been named twice the same name, and they're in their 40s. And then there's a young woman called Dee, and basically the first couple of chapters start off with them on the boat going to St Jago in the Caribbean, and straight away you realise that Janet doesn't like Dee. Dee and Twice have quite a weird relationship that Janet isn't fond of. Put it like that. Janet doesn't like the fact that Dee seems to hang on to Twice a lot, and she gets very... Dee gets very angry when Twice kind of ignores her, so she'll start having like tantrums and stuff. And at first I kind of got the idea that maybe she liked him in a way that she shouldn't, but then as you go on you realise that she's a very independent, fairly strong-willed young woman, and her personality puts a lot of people off. Throughout the book you realise there's a lot of people they come across who just don't seem to like Dee. Now, I find it interesting that I refer to those three and haven't mentioned the Emmie of the title. I'll admit I found the first few chapters a bit slow, mainly because they're on the boat, but you are introduced to Emmie on the boat that you don't realise. So at first you know her as Miss Morrison on the boat. There's not many people on the boat, and you realise that Twice and Janet, they don't know anything about Miss Morrison. Miss Morrison is very kind of stoic, very monotone, and just very to the point. She takes no prisoners, and she's very matter of fact, and as you can imagine that puts people off. So you've got two characters there that seem to be quite unlikable. As you go through you kind of learn kind of why they are the way they are. It becomes quite a surprise to Janet when she realises who Miss Morrison is, because the friends and family that she has on St Jago have always referred to her cousin Emmie, but she didn't realise the person they were talking about is this Miss Morrison. So for the first few chapters you hear her referred to as Miss Morrison, and then once you find out she's Emmie, she's then just referred to as My Cousin Emmie. I find that the title is almost a little bit misleading because you think it's going to be about Cousin Emmie. I find it's more of a coming of age story for Dee. That's where I was as I read it anyway. As I went through it I realised that even though it's done from the point of view of Janet, and you're getting a lot of Janet and Twice's story, they're telling Dee's story. Does that make sense? Throughout the book you realise that it does seem to be more about Dee than you realise. See, I'm saying quite minimum because there's quite a lot in this book to unpackage. I think for the 50s and 60s it seems like quite a progressive book. There seems to be quite a lot in the book that seems very relevant to today, though, even though with the fact that it was written in the 60s, there's some language that's of its time and you wouldn't use that language anymore. But obviously it's set in the Caribbean. Yeah, there's definitely a story of race. I wouldn't say racism. Or would I? There is a conversation about race in the book, which seems like it's quite a natural story considering the fact that it is set in the Caribbean. And as I said, you know, it's of its time. There are words used in the book that we wouldn't use today, not just in regards to race, but because there's also LGBTQ themes in the book, which I think makes this book extremely progressive for what it was. I don't feel like it's done in an offensive way. It's just a very matter-of-fact way that it's written. Anyway, let's get the blurb up on the book, 'cause I haven't actually read that to you. Janet Alexander, returning by sea to the Caribbean with her husband Twice, finds their domestic harmony threatened by the emotional problems of the two young people aboard. Ashore at St. Jago, the shipboard characters find themselves at the centre of a fast-thickening plot, with friends old and new joining in against the colourful background of carnival and sugar harvest, regattas and plantation life. And on land or sea is cousin Emmie herself, dominating the scene in her shapeless dresses, with her precarious appetite and her uncanny ability to get at the heart of a problem. Even the blurb makes it seem like it's more about Emmie than it is, and more about Janet and Twice than it is. It was an enjoyable book. For me, it started a bit slow with the chapters on the boat. I admit this one took me a little bit longer than, you know, I am with the average book. And I think that also has to do with the fact that they're quite long chapters, but as you get into it, the chapters don't seem quite as long because there's a bit more packed in there. There's so much more to it than what the blurb. There's so much more to it than what just the blurb says, because you are looking at the relationship between Dee and a boy that she meets on the ship. Yeah, as I said, I feel like even though you're getting it from the point of view of Janet and it's entitled My Friend Cousin Emmie, I do think the story focuses more on Dee and her kind of coming of age story. She's in her early 20s in the book, and she's kind of dealing with growing up, in trying to deal with the fact that, you know, she might be more like her father than she wants to be, and her just coming to terms with her relationship with Janet and Twice. Yeah, there's just so much to unpack about this book, because quite a lot happens when you get into it. Yeah, I definitely say it's a good coming of age story. There's just so much I could say about it. I really don't know what to say. Yeah, I just definitely say that the story is definitely more about Dee than the title of the book, and the fact that it's from Janet's point of view lets on. Janet definitely has an interesting relationship with Dee in the fact that she doesn't like the young girl, but at the same time she kind of wants to support her. And I kind of understand that relationship where you don't like somebody, but at the same time you want to see them learn and grow. Because I did have an interesting relationship with this book, but overall I did enjoy it. And as I said, I do think it was quite progressive for the stuff that is... I can't speak anymore. It's really interesting to talk about without trying to give away everything. The fact that it does take on race and sexuality in a way that you wouldn't expect of a book of the 50s and 60s is very interesting. Sorry, the lighting in here is ridiculous because it is February and it's quite... To be honest, I think we're expecting snow. There was snow on my birthday, which was a couple of days ago, and I think we're expecting more snow, which is why the lighting in here is just a bit all over the place. If you like a coming of age story, definitely recommend it. There is, would I say there was a mystery to it? There is a bit of a mystery in regards to Dee and trying to understand kind of her secrets. Oh. So I just saw information about the author that I didn't know. So Jane Duncan was the pseudonym. You know, I like that word. Jane Duncan was the pseudonym of Scottish writer Elizabeth Jane Cameron, best known for her My Friend series, which are semi-autobiographical, which is interesting. I think I just said that word horrifically, so please don't get me. Why can't I say that word? Biographical. Semi-autobiographical. Anyway, so that's the book. That's the cover as I've got it. But the cover on Goodreads is very, very different. I might post a picture of that cover somewhere on here so you can see it, and I'll pop a link in the description to where you can find it. But yeah, that's My Friend, Cousin Emmie by Jane Duncan. So, bit of a slow start, long chapters, but ultimately a really good progressive book for the 50s and 60s, which is when it was set and published. So thank you so much for watching. I have been Debbie. If you're not subscribed already, please do. I do upload these videos every single week on a Wednesday, and if you pop on those bell notifications, you'll get exactly the second that my videos are uploaded. But yeah, so thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next week with another video. Stay safe, everybody.